who now joins us at the side event on enhancing criminal justice amid artificial intelligence. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists and participants here in the conference room and online. On behalf of the International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges and other and co-organizers, I welcome you at this side event, which may be the first one in the history of the UN Crime Prevention Program. Artificial intelligence in the form of a chatbot, in other words, generative, meaning constructive, inventive, a pre-trained transformer, a type of large language model, has been made publicly available only last November. It knocked the door of the United Nations, and thanks to its secretariat, this side event contributes to the general theme of the ongoing session of the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, which is titled Enhancing the Functioning of the Criminal Justice System to Ensure Access to Justice and to Realize a Safe and Secure Society. From this title clearly emanates a positive and hopeful look at the functioning of criminal justice to realize safe and secure society. I immediately checked out whether indeed that chatbot can attend to the United Nations rule of law in question. And in no time, I found out that the edited and published by me in May 2022 hard copy book containing a chapter on the dialogue between Montesquieu and Machiavelli on the rule of law, climate change, and migration, the dialogue drafted by Judge Reisner, who is sitting here at the panel, by Michael Platzer, who was also co-drafter, and by Judge Friedrich Forshuber, was immediately plagiarized by that chatbot. The emergence of this brand new aspect of safe and secure society may be compared to the shift caused by the invention of a massive steam engine by James Watt in 1768. The AI developments so much gathered in pace that the first such chatbot, ChatGPT, it took only 5 days to reach 1 million users. While for Facebook, it took 5 months, for Twitter, 2 years, and for Netflix, 3.5 years. This panel may then give first UN crime prevention steam to address the question of artificial intelligence bad faith use of information and data by AI users, by users of that intelligence, whoever they are, be it students or law enforcement, criminal justice practitioners, or anybody else. But more than this panel is also about the lack of accountability and transparency of AI because of the complexity of algorithms that hide how one arrives at certain outcomes. Last but not least, and this seems to me the most dangerous development, as artificial intelligence algorithms become more prevalent in decision-making process, there is a risk of individuals unquestioningly accepting AI recommendations without critically evaluating their validity or implications. How then we may have impartial, strong institutions as the G16, including independent judiciary, hence independent and not artificial justice? How radical reforms aiming at enhancing justice delivery should be to make decisions still humane and trustworthy for the sake of the rule of law, which through the brotherhood of mankind, this is the term of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, should counter tyranny and oppression. Certainly, the side event audience here in the room and online may have other questions and concerns. We see a number of online participants, so the questions will also matter. So as much as it matters to keep the time discipline for our side event. So without further ado, I give the floor to Mr. Jean-Luc Lemayet, Director of the UNODC Division for Policy and Public Affairs, who may brief us on the current UNODC policy analysis and public affairs with regard to artificial intelligence. You have the floor, Mr. Lemayet.
Thank you very much, Slawomir, and thank you very much, for being here with us today. It's a pleasure to sit here within this panel, and let me try as well, to see what we could expect, or what I would expect, from the meeting today as such. When we talk AI, artificial intelligence, we should never forget, that there has been a hype before in artificial intelligence. About 2 decades ago, this was really the thing to work at. When we see again the same coming up today, and of course, is this no hype? Is this reality? Is to be seen. But at essence, if you really think what artificial intelligence is about, it's a broad term and it covers many technical and knowledge domains. But at essence, AI is about making decisions, and those decisions made by AI are already affecting the lives of everybody here together in this room. Needless to show you my iPhone, but just think as well in your living room. your thermostat, your smart thermostat, which connects, your well-being, the temperature in your home automatically, without you having to restate it over and over again. Think as well a little bit more difficult eventually and wide-reaching if you go to a bank for a home loan, and what the bank sector is putting in for data in trying to say, okay, this home loan is to be yours at that kind of a percentage interest rate. A bit more complex again if you, and we're not there yet, but if you think about a self-driving car, and a self-driving car is heading for a crash, the car itself will have to decide, okay, who will be the victim? The person on the other side of the car or the person inside the car? So it's very difficult, it's complex, but it's very much already aware and available in a day-to-day use. And that's the same for us in UNODC. When people don't seem to expect that we're already using in the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime quite some artificial intelligence works and machine learning within our technologies applied, especially in law enforcement. Millions of passengers arriving at the airports on a daily basis. How to profile the risk of those people? How can you select, that you would like to see that person and have a little discussion with this person, but not with the tens and thousands, frequenting the airport, coming in and out every day. Container control. 1.85 billion metric tons of cargo is shipped globally. Just assume that you would have to inspect all of that in detail. No way. So in that part as well, we do use machine learning, we do use artificial intelligence. We have container profiling training courses, such as ContainerCom and Seahawk already in place, which we roll out, to our counterparts, the beneficiary countries, to ensure that they indeed can use that modern technology instead of having to go for each passenger, for each container, and so forth and so on. Now, how transformative is artificial intelligence in the justice sector? Could we expect less lawyers and more machines without a heart? Then you will say there's no difference anyhow, so that doesn't matter. Well, as a lawyer, I tell you that the human aspect is still somewhat important. But according to The Economist, we will have more lawyers in the future. And the reasoning of The Economist is as follows. You will get longer and more elaborated contractual text, which needs to then be double-checked by the lawyers to make sure that you find all the loopholes and the little details into it. So if those are hoping that AI will get you less lawyers around, The Economist tells you, no, it's the other way around. There will be a lot more lawyers because the text will be much longer, and you only can trust AI so much. At the end of the day, you still need to have the human within that context. It doesn't need to be that negative. We all know, for example, that generative artificial intelligence systems will be used to both draft and analyze legislation. It will have the power to both create and detect loopholes in proposed legislation. and that in the context of all legislative instruments. Just imagine, I mean, if you're a judge and you need to draft a verdict, including the reasoning and the references, I mean, how much time that today takes and how much time you can gain if you have a high quality verdict script instantly, and you can process the case without a lot of editing. There's also power in more precisely communicating the meaning of new legislation throughout the country through AI in time. I mean, you don't have to wait until every court is being plugged in. No, you can do that in time. Controversially, of course, AI systems can assess the suspect's likelihood of reoffending and recommending jail sentences accordingly. And we definitely will hear more about that danger later on by other speakers. Now, I told you AI is a machine, is a tool, it's a black box. And one of the problems with the black box is that we don't understand, I mean, the internal workings of that black box. I mean, it's like for me, a washing machine. I know that there are people better suited to understand, to explain what the washing machine is about. But to me, it's putting my clothes in, my dirty clothes in, push the buttons, and I get my clean clothes back. If you ask me how the washing machine works, I have no clue. Well, regretfully on AI, there are very few people who have a clue on how the AI itself comes to its conclusions. So that is a problem which we have. I mean, how can we double check? How as humans can we verify, I mean, that things are right? Another problem which we have is the intellectual property and trade secrets. I mean, much of the AI is currently developed by private sector. It's costing a lot of money. And we don't, as a public organization, we of course have to rely on that knowledge being offered by the private sector. But do we know if those private for-profit organizations have been able to clean out all the outputs, or making sure that all the unbiased inputs went in the frame? And don't we have too much of a blind trust in the outcome of AI? At the end of the day, artificial intelligence sounds fantastic. I mean, I got my result of artificial intelligence, sounds very, very good. But what are the inputs? What are the outputs? Where are the biases? Where does that profit sector organization stand for? I mean, what is the meaning? What is the thinking of that organization? So we need to be aware of all of that. It's really far more complex than we would assume. I did something very lazy. I basically asked an AI system to write my speech, but I didn't do it. I asked a collaborator of me to do that. And he went to UCOM and came up with a short essay. And look how smart it sounds. I mean, this is not human processing. This is a system, a text, AI, which came up as the following. The use of artificial intelligence in criminal justice has been a topic of debate for many years. On one hand, AI can be used to automate certain processes and improve accuracy and efficiency in the criminal justice system. On the other hand, it can also lead to potential ethical issues such as bias or discrimination against certain groups. In order to ensure that AI is being used responsibly within the criminal justice system, regulations need to be put into place which will protect all parties involved from any potential harm caused by its implementation. And one way that regulations on the use, still AI, so still not written by me or anybody else, this is really what the computer brings up. One way that regulations on the use of AI could be implemented is through legislation passed by the governments at both national and local levels. I could go down a little bit, include provisions regarding data privacy, and then finally, furthermore, there needs to be an oversight body which would monitor how AI technologies are being used within different parts of the criminal justice systems and ensure that they are not causing any unintended consequences. The members of this body should have expertise in both computer science engineering fields, as well as knowledge about civil rights laws that can adequately address any concerns raised. It's amazing. So I might be soon out of business when I provide your speeches in the future, but it's a great help. And no doubt, I mean, Slavomir, I regret, but some of that here has been plagiarized from early work you have put in the system. With this, I thank you very much and give the floor to the other speakers. Thank you.
Jean-Luc, thank you very much. Jean-Luc very nicely introduces the question that has many other aspects, with which now I ask to take the floor by Dr. Hossein Hossani, and he has been included in a recently published list by Stanford University and elsewhere of the top 1% of world scientists across various academic disciplines who deal with big data and with statistics and big data and artificial intelligence. Now he's with the Webster University here in Vienna in Austria. So Hossein, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Slawomir, for the short introduction. And it's quite difficult to talk after what you said, Jean-Luc. And good morning, Excellencies, good colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. After the short introduction, so let me just grab a couple of the keywords that kindly Jean-Luc mentioned about regulation, bias, data input, output, and the black box inside, data privacy and confidentiality, and AI, and I would like to connect it to IA, which is what's the future, AI or IA? AI means, in terms, replacing human. IA, intelligence augmentation, is helping, assisting human. So I published a couple of paper on specifically this one. And today I want to talk about, I'm tasked and budgeted few minutes to talk about big data and how it's linked to AI, because without data, we don't have any system. We don't have any AI. We don't have any machine learning. So the data is a core business that we have. All this AI or technology, they come top of the data that we have. Let me share with you a couple of points here about the AI and big data. As I said, they are quite interlinked, but they are independent at the same time. They work together. What AI is doing and what big data is doing. Big data, in fact, is a fuel for the AI system or any machine learning. In a statistic, we have a term that we would say garbage in, garbage out. Exactly, this is a term that I have learned from the bachelor. So we have lots of noise, but sometimes they are news inside the data that we have. So that's quite important for us to understand this point as well. But at the same time, AI gives lots of value to what we gather, and it would be more effective and also more efficient to use the data that we have. So it's a fundamental part of the any AI system is a big data. Unfortunately, we are generating lots of data. But I would like to use this one, which is IBM did last year, a couple of years ago. Now, this year, we are producing, you see, that's the volume of the data that we are producing. If you compare it, the last 2 years compare it to the whole history of the data that we gather, 90% of the data has been generated last 2 years. I'm sure next year we come here, we talk, we have a different figure. So that leads me to 5 elements of the big data, which is volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and the value as well at the end of the day. So volume that I mentioned, just one example. In terms of velocity, you have a mobile data. Now we are generating lots of data. So, and that's an exponential curve is increasing. And I don't know the parameters. I'm a statistician and data scientist, the parameters to fix to this exponential rate, honestly, because it's fascinating how we are generating the data. At the same time, we have the variety of the data. I give you a couple of examples, and the noise, it comes with it. And if you accumulate all this noise, you have lots of sources that we are generating data. Which one is more accurate? If you go to Twitter, you see lots of different news, and then later on it will be declined or approved. We don't know. And that's the problem that we have. And with this AI, now we are generating even lots of fake information, if I call it. And at the end of the day, we gather the data, we use AI system to have a value out of it. So source of data, there are, of course, various data in terms of crime. I would like to say traditionally we use police records, survey, digital data now we have, and also it could say top of the data now is text mining, like this ChatGPT is using text mining. Myself, if you use ChatGPT for statistics and data science, they give you lots of wrong answer. I published one paper on this recently on the use of ChatGPT for the data science, and I mentioned a couple of wrong answers. The critical point, they give you lots of wrong, but because you trust, you don't check. And I give you a couple of, I invite you to look at those publications that I have. We have now linking image, video, and also lots of GIS data looking over the time. That's on the other aspect that we need to consider. Sorry, if you make a photo, I will go back to the previous slide. So, and then you can make. So we know that we do lots of analysis and processing with that. So I'm sorry for that. But then the problem is when it bring it to crime and criminal justice, there are a couple of points that we need to consider. Yes, AI, big data, machine learning algorithm, even now deep learning and linking to cloud, they give us lots of opportunity that we can use it for crime mapping, which is quite hot now. Mapping not only for the crime, for many other sources as well. Predictive, and also we could look at the investigation, like the text that you prepare, but there are lots of challenges and opportunity as well. You mentioned education, because we need to look at the professional that we are training as a university professor like you, that I'm learned from many of them. So education is quite important to train. We need to be ahead of the curve. The technology, as you kindly mentioned and rightly mentioned, has been with us. Automation has been with us 30 years ago. We have started, and 20 years ago, we will be again new technology as well. So we need to engage students and future judge from now to the real world application using this big data. We need to expose them. We need to have a better system also in the training. We need to embed such this information into curriculum, into subject, in the course that we are doing. Unfortunately, I have not seen that much. As a keyword, yes, I've seen it, but in reality, we don't see it that much as well. I'm teaching, as I said, in university, and that's a problem now we have as well. So there are other keywords that I want to share with you, ethical and the privacy consideration. That's quite important. We need to consider this point, and I'm glad that I have put couple of things, and then you kindly mention as well. What about the privacy issue? What about the ethical? It's not only the bias, it's a broader term of this. We are sharing the information. So I wanted to publish a paper about the data slavery. Now we are a slave. We are producing data now. We are obliged to do that by using phone, and we are doing it, even if you don't want to do it. So these are all the things. I'm glad to share with you that UN last week, they endorsed the data governance. And that's the key point. They work, the UN system, they work on this one, on the data governance for 2 years. They involve many parties, and last week they endorsed it. With a good data governance, we can tackle many of these issues. I invite you to look at this data governance issue. And I would like to back to one of the other points is the new legislation or AI Act approved by European Union. That's not only for European, and it will go beyond the Europe as well soon. I'm glad that they approved this, and that's affect what we are doing in terms of AI. The speed is too much, but I'm sure together we can navigate the opportunity, at the same time, the challenges that we can use AI. And in our society, this is our life as well. So we need to take it. By this, I finished my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very interesting and yet again broadening perspective on artificial intelligence. I want now to introduce Judge Gerhard Reisner, Honorary President of the International Association of Judges, whereby the independence of judges and independence of judiciary vis-a-vis artificial intelligence is of fundamental importance. Judge Reisner, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here with you in this very interesting side event on this topic. Can artificial intelligence infringe the independence of judges? Artificial intelligence itself does not have the ability to infringe upon the independence of judges. It is a tool that can be used to assist judges in their decision-making processes, but it does not possess intentions nor capability to influence judicial independence on its own. However, the use of artificial intelligence in judicial systems can raise certain concerns that need to be addressed to ensure the preservation of judicial independence. It is essential to carefully consider the design, the implementation, and the oversight of artificial intelligence systems to prevent any potential bias or undue influence. One concern is the potential for bias in artificial intelligence algorithms. If artificial intelligence systems are trained on biased or incomplete data, they may perpetuate or amplify existing biases in the judicial process. It is crucial to assess these algorithms and data used in detail to ensure fairness and avoid discrimination. Another concern is the over-reliance on artificial intelligence systems. While artificial intelligence systems can be a valuable tool in aiding judges by providing insights and analysis, it should not replace the judgment and decision-making capabilities of human beings. Judges must retain their independence and exercise their discretion to applying the law. To address these concerns and safeguard judicial independence, it is important to establish clear guidelines and regulations for the use of artificial intelligence in the judiciary. Transparent and explainable artificial systems can help judges to understand the reasoning behind artificial intelligence generated recommendations and predictions. Regular audits, oversight, and accountability mechanisms can also be put in place to monitor the use of artificial intelligence systems and address any potential issues. Ultimately, the impact of artificial intelligence on judicial independence will depend on how it is implemented, regulated, and integrated into the legal system. Of what I said so far, no single word was mine. No single idea was elaborated by me. I did the same as Jean-Luc. I put the question, can artificial intelligence infringe the independence of judges to ChatGPT? Of course, I agree with everything which was said. It sounds quite okay and perfect. This and other similar experiences supported my opinion that indeed the independence of judges is not at risk, but that the framework, the way how judges have to work and their role may be changed very significantly. Indeed, it is, for instance, some examples. Establishing the facts we already have heard about the use of AI in by the enforcement authorities. We know now that AI is somehow a means when you put forward some pictures, sounds, documents to prove something that they may be faked and constructed by AI. It is also, of course, when the points, in the past, judges more or less have to decide on events which happened in the past. Now, more and more, they are required to anticipate possible developments in the future. In criminal cases, for instance, the decisions on probation, the decisions on preterm release, and so on. But the same is in family cases, it is in environmental cases, So very often comprehensible reasoning in experts' reports is not really there, is a little bit missing, and it might therefore be tempting an offer to rely on support by AI. But this may, as we heard, worsen the problems because if there is no transparency, then of course the reasoning is again not in line with what is expected by a fair trial. Next point, applying the law. Since many, many years, we have machines which somehow look and search for case law. But do we know that the database, which was just amended, is filled unbiased? And do we know which search algorithm is used and is it unbiased? And so again, can we really say that equal and equal is really equal and could be identified correctly? There is the argument that machines will better safeguard that the same situations will be treated in the same way, and therefore machines would better avoid discrimination. But is there still space then for a judge to find arguments why, according to the intention of the law, situations which prima facie look alike are treated differently? Will insofar judges be necessary anymore? Can they have a play in this? And similar, it was already addressed somehow, there is more and more use of pre-trial or pre-court dispute solutions by AI-based proposals and analysis. In all these big businesses which are done by internet, such tools are provided. And it was addressed already in the beginning by Slawomir that this may lead to trust these decisions, to accept these decisions, and there will be no room anymore to develop law and to somehow question some legal regulations and go on. This debate will maybe excluded if it all stopped at this level. So these are some reasons why indeed one can doubt on the role of the judge, or one has to be aware that perhaps the role of the judge may be endangered. So what is necessary? There is the necessity of a framework. And the question is, does it exist? It does not exist so far, but there are earlier than it had been with the regulation of social media, now steps of legislation, of legislators to start with a legislation in this field. And I hint at the Council of Europe. There we had CEPEJ, which in 2019 already adopted the 5 principles of the use of artificial intelligence in judicial systems and their environment. We have the Human Rights Commissioner of the Council of Europe, who adopted a paper, Unboxing Artificial Intelligence, 10 Steps to Protect Human Rights. And we have in Europe, it was already addressed, this Artificial Intelligence Act, which is in the drafting stage, but maybe it could be finished this year. The parliaments will have its voting in June. And last week, there was an interesting meeting in the US Senate on artificial intelligence, where a lot of experts had been summoned. And one of the fathers of the ChatGPT, Sam Altman, he was very much claiming that legislation should be put in place to safeguard a useful and not dangerous application of artificial intelligence. I wanted to go in these topics much more, but we can do this in the following debate, I hope. So far, for the moment, from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Reisner, for your statement on the independence of judiciary that is in a way in a limbo these days because of artificial intelligence. But we still have not seen what may be ahead of us beyond artificial intelligence. That is when it comes to artificial justice. And here we have at the panel Dr. Karol Rutkowski. He's an attorney at law and the head of an Institute of Justology in Warsaw in Poland, where he also does his service. And he will speak about developments in predictive and artificial justice and the lawyers on the job training. So with this, I give the floor to Dr. Rutkowski. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of Justice of the Republic of Poland recently convened a conference on the subject of the artificial intelligence in the legal system. It was agreed there that the artificial intelligence should serve to speed up and streamline legal proceedings and basically nothing more than that. Those in charge of the Polish judiciary seem to overlook the threats posed by the development of the artificial intelligence. Nota bene, what an unfortunate name. Nevertheless, I have my own well-established views and fresh ideas about the functioning of justice in the era of the Fifth Industrial Revolution, leading to the creation of a common civilization of humans and hereditary intelligence, HI, as I propose to consistently call what we now call the artificial intelligence. I claim that the Fifth Industrial Revolution has already begun, although we are still talking about the fourth one, and it is still the fourth that the societies of the world's leading economies are living with. I propose to create a new stream of futurology, axiological futurology, taking into account the progress of ICT and especially development of the hereditary intelligence. Much has been said recently about the dangers of ICT progress. Little is said about preventing their occurrence. Aside from the irrational ideas to turn off the hereditary intelligence power supply if it turns out to act against humans. This is simply not feasible. There is no master power switch for the entire globe. And if we were to notice that hereditary intelligence was hostile to us, it would be too late to take preventative steps. It is also not enough to establish legal regulation too. Even if it is necessary, the question is if the hereditary intelligence will obey the rules. The only chance for humanity to survive and coexist harmoniously with the HI is to manifest our attitude towards it, saturated with the highest values, love, goodness, beauty, truth, and especially justice. It is about a permanent and an unchanging human attitude towards the hereditary intelligence of which we are the creators, based on a Ciceronian Alpian definition of justice, to give everyone, both human beings and robots, their due right. Of course, this requires creation of robot rights analogous to human rights. Human rights do not form a closed catalog, and their primus inter pares is, in my deepest conviction, the right to justice in a material sense, abstracting from procedures and organizational issues. It should be the right to justice for any self-aware intelligence, biological, silicon, or other. The Fifth Industrial Revolution mentioned is, in my view, the process of creation and its completion of quantum computers. I believe that the technological singularity will occur in a quantum computer, a unit of a strong hereditary intelligence, and a spark of self-awareness will ignite, which will cause the conflagration of this self-awareness in the cybernetic world. The point is not to prevent this, because all attempts of preventive actions will come to nothing, will end in failure. A postulated introduction of moratoria of the development of the HI makes little sense. Already hereditary intelligence units are learning from each other, omitting the programmers, and we are enabled to control or oppose this. Anyways, the point is not to fight it. The point is that we as humanity should approach current developmental processes of the hereditary intelligence in the same way parents and grandparents approach the development of their children and grandchildren, with feeling. Will the hereditary intelligence reciprocate this affection? And why not? If it reaches a level of self-awareness and surpasses us intellectually by millions of times, then it will also be able to feel kind of feelings that we have been so far attributing only to humans. The point is that just as in the process of upbringing, the ancestors pass on to their offspring the values they regard as crucial and ensure that other values they regard as negative do not nestle for good in the minds of their offspring. A process of integrating and harmonizing coexistence of humans and self-aware units of the hereditary intelligence should be based on exactly the same principles. Humans should adopt the hereditary intelligence, inspire it, educate, instill in it love of the highest ethical values, as well as meet it on an emotional level. The key and the same time, the yardstick for the interactions of humans and robots should be justice, because it suits best these roles. The right to justice and specific rights resulting from it, developed jointly by people and the hereditary intelligence, human rights and robot rights, should be the foundation of a common civilization of people and the hereditary intelligence. Feelings do not go hand in hand with usefulness. At a certain point, we will no longer be needed by the HI. The crux of the matter is that we are loved and respected by it. This will be possible if we love to the hereditary intelligence and treat it with dignity and justice, to the point of adopting it with a solemn act and then treating it like parents and grandparents treat their children and grandchildren, as ancestors treat their descendants, as creators treat their creation. With the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the United Nations set the first milestone in the development of human civilization. These rights change, the new ones are added, and they receive the new meaning. The directions of human civilization and cultural development of humanity are determined by the goals set out in the UN Sustainable Development Agenda until 2030. And now is the best time to take the first step to build common civilization of human and hereditary intelligence under the auspices of the United Nations. I try to persuade these views and ideas to my students and apprentices. Thank you for your attention.
Dr. Rutkowski, thank you very much for your very thorough statement that probably takes us also beyond 2030. Now we have the pleasure to have Professor Fariba Karimi from the Technical University, from the Vienna Technical University, who will also speak on the topic of mainstreaming and exactly artificial intelligence and gender mainstreaming. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Do I have my slides? Right. Okay, I'm very glad to be here. So let me start by giving you some examples, right, of when AI can go wrong. Consider a judge who receives an algorithmic generated recidivism risk score as part of a report on a convicted criminal, right? This score tells the judge how likely this person is commit another crime in the future. So the higher the score, the more likely someone is to be repeated offender. So the judge takes this score into account and determine who deserve jail time, right? The thing is that this system is being used in the United States, and what happens is that the judge usually assumes that these algorithmic scores are perceived impartial and unbiased because these are not human generated scores. These are algorithmic scores, so they are impartial. But the truth of the matter is that these are not oh, I thought we are going forward, sorry. Yes, so can you, yeah. Can I have control?
Yes,
on the-
here.
Thank you. Okay, so I am talking about these algorithms that give a risk score to the judge to decide which people deserve jail time, right? And the report came out a couple of years ago that showed that these are actually not impartial scores. In fact, African American are at least two times more likely to be in the higher risk, but actually they didn't reoffend. And we have a white population who are two times more likely to label as lower risk, but in fact, in future, they reoffend, right? So another example could be related to image recognition algorithms. Now, not only the data itself can be biased, but if we design algorithms that are trained only on images of white people, what happens is that we can be very wrong with regards to images of other types of population. For example, here, the algorithms with high confidence label these individuals as men. Now, if images are being used to determine whom to advertise, who deserve asylum seeker, who deserve a credit score, then we are basically discriminating one population because of this mismatch in the data. Other examples include if you Google 3 Black teenagers or 3 white teenagers, the algorithm is now trained on, for Black teenagers is trained on mugshots from prisons, while in white images, it's stock images, right? So that this kind of has a devastating effect on younger adults in how they imagine themselves in the society and how they are being perceived by others. Therefore, it can potentially result in more despair, low confidence, and even suicide. Very recently, the algorithms can also be used and personal data can be misused by the governments. So recently, they're trying to use face recognition algorithms to determine who doesn't have hijab, and therefore these women, their bank account can be blocked and they can be fined. Now, these are the problems. Now, what causes these problems in algorithms? One cause is imbalance in the data. The data that we use to train algorithms, sometimes they have imbalanced population. For example, according to the United Nations, 37% of women globally do not use the internet, and 250 million fewer women have no access to the internet, right? So this means that basically our prediction about the population is basically affected by this imbalance in the population. The next problem is that we might have historical discrimination. historical discrimination against certain racial minority groups or women. And what happens is that this discrimination in the past have their footprint in the structure of the present, right? So even if nobody in the present time are biased, the structure itself can carry biases from the historical past. This is something sociologists call as racism without racist. So it's very important to understand how history affects the structure of society. And finally, this interaction between AI and human judgment can create self-fulfilling prophecies. If we use algorithms to determine for predictive policing, to send police in areas where algorithms determine these are more higher risk. Of course, when more police are present in those areas, there will be more crime recorded, right? So more crime recorded, more data being fed to algorithm that determines more police is needed in those areas. So even a small initial randomness in the system can be reinforced and exacerbated because of this effect. So what are the consequences? One consequence is that whatever social biases we have in society, self-selection biases and other types of biases are treated into algorithms, and they in return affect our perception and biases as well. So our biases can be reinforced and create secondary effects that is usually difficult for us to determine as scientists. And the second effect is that our opinion are also get through this feedback loop. So if the data tells us to make certain decisions, we make those decisions, therefore we in turn affect the data itself. So it creates a vicious feedback loop between our decision making and what data suggests. So I want to just briefly discuss how we can move forward. And I would like to propose that first of all, we need more diversity and inclusion in AI and information communication technology itself. We need to have people in tech industry and academia who come from diverse backgrounds. And that means that those people would be able to understand the problem and detect it, something that otherwise would go unnoticed. The second thing I would like to propose is that we need better data training and testing. Perhaps we need better statistical models. We need to harvest the importance of synthetic data exploration and better sampling methods, and basically understanding the whole loop of where the biases can be go into this loop. Another thing I would like to emphasize is that we need to consider how to bring empathy and compassion into the loop. Because in our human judgment, we use these invisible forces as well when we judge something, right? Like empathy and compassion. But in AI systems, this is not present. And finally, I think that what that makes us human and intelligent is this collective intelligence and wisdom of crowds. The fact that we collectively can make better decisions, conditional the fact that our opinions are independent and not correlated. Now, if we assume that all those crowd can be expressed by one individual, that is the AI, to make that decision, we are basically missing out on this idea of collective intelligence that that would be a big miss. So finally, as a network scientist and complexity science researcher myself, I would like to propose that complexity science might have an important role here in understanding how mechanisms in micro level can create emergent phenomena in the macro level in society and algorithms, because we are talking about a system that is path-dependent, time-dependent, dynamical system. So complexity approach can help us create more causal models that we can explain how micro level properties affect the macro level phenomena, so we can go towards interpretability and explainability. Thank you very much.
Dr. Karimi, thank you very much. I know that we are slightly behind the schedule, but there may be questions from the participants both online and in this room. So perhaps we could have another 10 minutes, a bit longer, so the panelists could at least respond to some questions. So who is the first one to
Turn the light.
cut the ice?
Good morning. Good morning from Warsaw. I would like to ask the question.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Peter Haider. I represent the Universal Peace Federation. The big effect, at least on world politics, is a lot determined by national interest and narratives. How does national interest and narratives, how are they affected possibly by artificial intelligence?
Okay.
Or how will future wars be fought? Will they be fought by robots guided by these big computers? Or how do you imagine all these things which should happen in the future? Thank you.
Okay, who wants to answer?
I can answer in terms of mapping, but politically, I don't know someone else.
Okay.
First, thank you, Peter. I try to answer one part of it. I'm sure the other colleague, they can answer part. So first of all, we don't have I do agree with you, but currently we don't have an answer. If I ask you about the measurement of this, do we have an answer? No, because yes, you are absolutely right. But if you have a ranking or the data and the statistics, we are not able yet to do that. That's why I mentioned the mapping of this, because now, for example, the Google trend, if you put the keyword that you mentioned, you come up with the mapping and trending which country, and you see the interest even over time has been changed. I've done this a couple of times, and I see that even the interest has been changed over the time region-wise and country-wise as well. That's one aspect. So measuring this, and also this is the issue for many of the SDG as well. But going back to the second part, which is, I think, quite important that you mentioned about how we can implement. I think other colleague that they look at it from broader term, not only data point of view, they can answer it. So who wants to tackle? This is a tricky part, so I leave it to non-data scientists to answer.
Thank you. Frankly speaking, nobody knows. But on the other hand, as I mentioned before, I suppose that nobody can manage the hereditary intelligence. My own idea to name this as it named artificial intelligence in this way. This is not possible to manage. As I mentioned before, the units of artificial intelligence means hereditary intelligence deal each other to build new knowledge, and I am really confident that this is the only way. Try to build the common civilization of people and hereditary intelligence. I know that it sounds quite strange or even quirky, but I strongly believe that this is the only way, on the basis of values and, let me say, feelings. Yes, as I mentioned before. Nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, do we have other questions online?
what is histology and how to introduce it to the presented real life.
I don't,
Can you repeat the question?
I don't hear.
It's written there.
Okay, so this is the question from Aziz Tajini from the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Good morning. I don't know if I'm on.
To Mr. Rutkowski.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please,
Okay. I have another idea to build a special science for justice, not to. My idea is to build a special science for justice, as we have a science for law, means jurisprudence. I think that this is really good idea to build the science for justice. My proposal is to name it justology. And I imagine that it is possible to build one big repository to use big data and other tools of artificial intelligence, and to take the opportunity to know everything about the justice. It should be involved the whole knowledge from the different sciences, human and social sciences, and to create a new science. It should be the basis for building the new common, let me say, civilization of the humans and hereditary intelligence. The justice should be the basis, the highest values should be the basis, but especially the justice. And we should concentrate on the building of this science. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rutkowski. I see another question, this time to Fariba Karimi. Why are you excluding empathy and compassion from your computations?
Okay, maybe I didn't explain it correctly, but actually I meant to say that we need to consider empathy and compassion in the decision-making process when AI is also included, because this is something that the AI cannot comprehend, and I think it's a very important part of human nature.
Thank you very much. And I still have one last question to Judge Reisner that came by chat. How the law can protect the human rights against the AI when the AI will have the self-awareness? Will it have the self-awareness in the first place? I would like to add this question too. Thank you.
Thank you. If it will have, I don't know. This was topic of this panel, and we don't see in the future at this hearing in the Congress, which I mentioned before. The meaning was no, they won't have, at least in the next few years. The legal instruments which are on the way, for instance, this Artificial Intelligence Act in the European Union, they have as one of the criteria to monitor and to allow artificial intelligence to be used in critical fields. And one of the critical fields is decision-making by judicial organs and similar bodies, to have a human rights check of these instruments, so that one can say that the existing human rights catalog somehow should be safeguarded from influence by artificial intelligence. I don't know how this will be done. There will be need some special regulations on that, but this is the principle which is at the moment already in this draft of the European Union's legal document. What is it?
Okay, here is, my question is, in fact, yes, I have overlooked that. From Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights in Geneva. My question is, I quote, the International Human Rights Framework is applicable to this area. The Office of High Commissioner has issued several reports on the human rights concerns arising from the use of AI technologies. What does the panel see as a challenge to translating the human rights framework into the criminal justice area? Who wants to answer?
I guess all the means which are proposed, which is to have some training data in if data are used to do, and how these are done, how the quality of the data to prevent what was exemplified by Fariba. And all this somehow has to be in the awareness of the existing fundamental rights. And of course, I can touch upon rights of freedom, about freedom of expression, first of all, discrimination and all these things. How technically this is done, I don't know, but from the theoretical point of view, I guess it should be possible at this level, if it's possible. And if needed, then to integrate this in this bigger concept, which Carol pointed out, who body knows.
Yes, we will hear the answers probably in the course of a month or years before the 15th United Nations Congress also starts to be prepared and organized, but in which it is not only the question of criminal justice that I see in the question, but also of crime prevention, human rights, and artificial intelligence. So this is quite a broad area that we are just facing for the first time, and I hope that we will, in due course, by the time of the 15th Congress in Abu Dhabi in 2026, we'll have a much better view of the situation, and also how to counter artificial intelligence abuses. Thank you. With this presentations and questions and answers to everyone involved or listening or watching our side event. I would like to thank also my colleagues from cooperating organizations, Alliance of Non-Governmental Organizations on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, American Society of Criminology, Association of History of Justice and the Rule of Law, International Association of Judges, Vienna School of International Studies, the Diplomatic Academy, and the Academic Council on the United Nations System to help us, the United Nations Studies Association and International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges, to stage this side event. And I thank you all for your presentations and attendance. Thank you.
Won't be the last debate of this year.